All right, welcome to your first in the Box 1 series of classes. We are assuming that either you have some previous boxing experience and or you have gone through the Essentials series of classes 1 through 4 at least one time, and that would mean, one class per week. In this class, we've got Coach Alex back with us, and he is going to start off with some skipping. So we'll start off with a little bit of skipping. So if you have a rope handy, go ahead and make sure you grab that. If you don't have a rope, you can just do a little bit of what we've been doing, a little imaginary skipping, as long as you're on the balls of your feet. After that, we'll go into a little bit of footwork. For starters, we're going to be working on 2-minute rounds. If you need to do something shorter or longer than that, feel free to do so. This is going to be dependent on your current physical fitness level. So if you know that you can do about 30 seconds at a time, that's okay. Continue to do that until you feel much more comfortable with it, a lot stronger in your skipping. You can do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Something like that is often a good start for people who haven't skipped rope in a long time or maybe ever. Otherwise, Alex is going to go a 2-minute round straight through. And in this round, he's going to alternate a little bit between just getting the rope under his feet along with a little bit of that side-to-side weight shift. He's going to get started in 3, 2, 1, and go. And just following along at home. He's also working on nose breathing, all right? So he's getting some nasal breathing instead of mouth breathing. I recommend this practice. There are a lot of benefits to this type of breathing, some of which I won't get into now. But he's going to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose as he's working. He's going to keep his eyes forward, keep his chin in a neutral position. Got a little weight shift going side to side. When he goes to the side to side, as we covered in the Essentials class, we want to transfer the weight from one foot to the other as opposed to shifting your whole base left to right. We are very close to halfway through the round. Less than a minute left, and Alex is just going to go ahead and mix it up as he pleases, as you're going to do at home. You can get the rope just straight up and down under the feet, alternating with a little side-to-side shift in the weight. Another thing you may notice, he's got his elbows more or less pulled into his sides. Sometimes what people do when they skip rope is they really pull their arms, they start to pull their arms away as they skip. Another thing they'll do is they'll swing through the elbow, sometimes a little through the shoulder. We want those elbows pulled in a little bit, just like so. Time. Great, thanks, Alex. All right. We're going to go another round of skipping. Give Alex a little bit of a break. Again, you're deciding what you're going to set your timer to, 1.5, 2, or 3 minutes, and whether or not you're working on intervals. Next round, we're just going to have them work on what we call figure eights. You get 4 skips under the feet, and then you get the rope in a figure eights pattern from side to side. Okay? He's going to start off with a 4 and 4 count, Alex, please. A 4 and 4 count. And then we'll go from there. He's going to narrow it to a 2 and 2 for those of you who are a little bit more comfortable at skipping. Alex, in 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So that's just a good way to start. You may or may not be able to hear the rope. It's got this sound to it of the rope passing through the air around him. He's keeping the rope nice and taut. Nice and taut. So Alex, go ahead and just switch it to 2 counts instead of 4 counts. I recommend counting out loud, very much like dancing can be helpful to just keep your rhythm as you're trying to get more comfortable with this. Now I'm going to have Alex just mix it up with crossovers when you want, Alex. Under the feet, figure eights, and crossovers as you feel, He's still breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Less than a minute left on the skipping. If you're aiming for 3 minutes, you may opt to pause at the end of our round and continue with the added minute. Less than 30 seconds. Keeping just a few inches of space between the feet. Excellent breathing rhythm, Alex. Real nice. Time. All right. So I'm going to recommend that everyone at home do one more round of skipping, and in this next round, you're just going to mix it up, kind of like you saw Coach Alex doing in the second half of that second round. He was getting the rope under his feet. Sometimes he got a little bit of a weight shift. He worked in those figure eights and some crossovers. If you can't do something, try it a few times just for practice, and don't worry about harping on it. Don't worry, just get a little bit of practice in. It's a consistent effort here that's going to pay off in the long term. All right, pause the video, go ahead and do one more round, and then hit play so you can continue for the rest of the class. All right, so we're going to move on to a little bit of what we consider some footwork, or we call footwork. We're going to work on the pivot to the left. There are different, I want to make it clear that there are different places where you could refer to some footwork as a pivot, whether that's turning or pivoting your foot when you punch. For the sake of what we do here at the gym, for the sake of trying to be a little bit clearer on the terms that we use so you know what we're asking or what we expect, when we refer to pivot, we mean turning to the left. If you're an orthodox fighter, that means that you're in your stance and you pivot this way to your backside, or what some people call the dead side. So what Coach Alex is going to do for a little bit as I talk over and give you some cues is he is going to stand on the line, which is something you would have been introduced to this line in the essentials classes. He's going to stand on the line in his orthodox stance. He's going to do what we call crack the door. Now look, basically what you're doing is you're slipping. And how big you step or where you step to really depends on where you want to end up in relation to your opponent. So that said, let's just get a nice, let's say a few inches most to crack the door. Basically, my head's on the 12 o'clock line and my back shoulder is going to end up where my head was at. I've shifted my weight, now I'm going to turn or pivot to the left. Alex, would you cue up here? So he's going to crack the door, film a shift, and pivot. He shifts his weight back. Alex, crack the door, pivot. Crack the door, pivot. Don't be shy about shifting your weight back as you pivot. Crack the door, pivot. That's it. Crack the door, pivot. Crack the door, pivot. One more time. He cracks the door, he pivots. Keep going, Alex. Just work with that a little bit. So you're going to work with that a little bit. Let that right shoulder come down when you shift your weight back, Alex. So Alex, you keep working. I'm going to talk through this a little bit and point out that some of the things I see people do when they're attempting to pivot is they don't crack the door, they don't take that short step that opens up their stance, in essence slipping. This would give you the opportunity to slip a punch. And when you don't do that and you pivot, you end up in a position where your back is pretty much to your opponent and they have the opportunity to land across, assuming, well, actually, so assuming that they're an orthodox fighter. Yes, assuming they're an orthodox fighter. The other thing is people will stay front heavy and they'll pivot and they'll stay here, heavy on their front foot, and what we want you to do is shift. The heel will actually come up so you can get a smooth turn on the ball of your foot. Last note I want to make is that people will often step, stay heavy on the heel, turn, and then turn their foot. We don't want you to turn your foot after the pivot. We want it, if you watch Coach Alex's feet, they are nice and smooth, Alex. He steps, he turns, and transfers away. Forward, back, forward, back. That's it. All right, if you watch, even though his front heel doesn't come up dramatically, but it comes up enough that he can create a pivot point on the ball of his front foot and get a nice turn here. Time. Okay, take a break at home or wherever you are following along. We'd like you to do at least one more 2 to 3 minute round practicing these pivots, visualizing as best you can your opponent in front of you, and keeping in mind the pivot it's useful to help you slip punches and get into a good position in relation to your opponent rather quickly. You can evade punches. But it will also serve to get you around the ring to a spot quicker than trying to take 2 or 3 lateral steps to that position, which usually your opponent can keep up with rather quickly. All right, so you're going to go ahead and pause, go ahead and practice that pivot, and then we'll move on. So now we're going to throw the right hook to the body. That's your inside hand, whether you are a southpaw or an orthodox boxer. Elbow, I like to think of the elbow staying with the hip as much as possible. And that just means, and this is true on the left side and the right side, so anytime you're throwing a punch, when I turn, it can appear as if I'm pulling my elbow way behind me, but I'm actually not. I've turned my hips. So not unlike the other side, we're going to throw on this side, we're going to take a seat so we bear and shift our weight, and then drive around for that hook to the body. Okay, boom, turn. I want to delay the amount of time that my fist is spending or my hand is spending away from my face. Alex, can we have a peek? Head on. Good, let's get a little more curve around. There we go. 2 more. Good. Let's get less of a shift back and more of a seat just kind of bearing down. Less of a big dramatic shift back. Will you give us a face the bag so we can get a view of you this way? There you go. Let's try it again. And this is just smashing to the ribs, just like the other hook was. Time. So in a moment, you'll pause the video and do another round practicing on that side. We're smashing to the ribs. Look, if I have an angle, depending on the angle that I have on my opponent, I may be aiming this punch to the solar plexus. I'm just taking into consideration where I am in relation to my opponent and what is open. So go ahead and practice that for a round and meet us back here for some other work. All right, so next round we're going to get on the heavy bag. If you are working out at home and you don't have a heavy bag, shadow boxing would be just fine. Just try to keep a good, concentrated effort, good focused effort in the time that you set out for yourself, whether that's a 2 or 3 minute round. Just good, focused effort. Now, sometimes, especially, I guess, maybe not just when we're newer, but I think especially when we're newer, this movement is new to us. And so we can tend to stop and really start to overthink stuff. And so I'm just going to invite you to breathe, just get into your stance, and do the best you can to breathe and release any unnecessary tension when you're in your stance. Try to maintain your balance as you're moving around. If you lose it, correct that as quickly as you can and get right back to work. This first round, we're going to have Coach Alex work on 2 combinations. The first one's going to be a 1-2 pivot around the bag, 1-2 pivot around the bag. He's going to crack his door when he's throwing the 1-2. I like to do that on the 1 for myself. Some people do it on the 2. You do it on the 1 or 2, Alex? Alex is going to crack the door on the 1, so that's a demonstration he's going to give you. He's going to 1-2, just turn into that 2, pivot out. At some point I'll say, hey Alex, add a 2, and this is going to be for those people who feel like you're getting this really smoothly, it's feeling good, or people who have more experience, who have already been boxing for a little while, and can use the added work on setting their feet and punching when they come out at an angle to their opponent. All right, Alex, I'm getting the timer going here. We're going to go 1-2 pivot, and the next one's 2-3-2 pivot when I have them switch. In 3, 2, 1, go. Turn more into that 2, Alex. You're a little rushed on it. That's it. Really turn into it. Using the 1. You're using the 1 to set up the 2. Right? Meaning you're using that 1 to measure your distance. To blind me, he's throwing it at his imaginary opponent's eyes. And so when you throw that 2, Alex, it turns into that 2. That 2 is way too short for what we're doing. That's it. We drive the hips, turn the hips into that 2. That's it. Add a 2, Alex. He's going to add a 2 to that. There we go. So a few more times with the 2. Add 2. There we go. One more time. One more time. Good. Which direction? Let's go 2-3-2 pivot. 2-3-2. He stepped right. He's giving you a little sneak peek to what's coming. 2-3-2 pivot. That's it. Attitude, 3 times. Attitude. 2-3-2. Pivot, 2. That's it. Again. Excellent. So either you're pausing the video so you can go on for another minute, or you're going to stop here with us now. I'm going to ask you to pause and practice that for one more round. Just rest for about another 20 to 30 seconds and go another round. All right, for the next round, we're going to have you work on 2 combinations once again. This is going to be the 1-2 left hook to the body, or I should say lead hook to the body. So it'll be a 1-2 hook to the body. 1-2 hook to the body. So he's going to do that, move around the bag, practice that combination. When I will have him switch at some point, and the combination he's going to work on is going to be it's going to be a 2-3 hook to the body. 2-3 hook. All right, here we go, Alex. In 3, 2, 1, and go. Try to nose breathe in between. That's it. Strong fist on landing. Alex, let go of the jab right away. You're kind of delayed. You're leaning forward. so you're telegraphing where you're going. So try to let go of the jab right away. Yeah, even sooner than that. So what I'm pointing out to Alex as he's practicing back there is, and this is kind of a common thing I see happen, when people will start to drop into their slip, you give away your attention instead of immediately releasing the jab. And so what happens, you end up telegraphing what you're going to do. So I see it coming, and I can counter you. So he was, for example, leaning in and then throwing the jab instead of immediately throwing the jab, so that he isn't immediately telling you what he's going to do. One more time, Alex. Okay. Let's try 2, 3, 8. Let's switch it. Good. Turn those knuckles over. Strong legs. That's it. Keep it loose. Much nose breathing as you can do with your knee. One more time. Excellent. So this is going to be another place that in a moment I'm going to ask you to pause. I do want to take this opportunity to remind you, in between, as much as you can, try to force yourself to close your lips, not just your teeth, but your lips, and breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth between delivering combinations and when you're resting. The other part I want to remind you of is really feeling for where your punch is landing. This takes practice just like everything else that we want to get better at, but make a denser fist than you think you need to pack. And when you turn, really try to land on the correct surface of the knuckles, not the pinky, not the knocking knuckles, not the slapping, but right on there. So nice, dense fist when your punches are landing so you don't roll that wrist or hurt your hand. All right, go ahead and pause the video, do one more 2 or 3 minute round of what we just did, and meet us back here. All right, so up to now we've covered, in terms of defense, we have taught you how to parry a number of the punches that we've shown you. Today, we'll take it a little step further and get into some blocking of the hooks to the body. But first, we're going to start with, I'm going to throw the 1-2 at Alex and use the noodles to be my 1 and my 2, or my jab and my cross. And all he's going to do is parry them, which is to say he's going to offer a slight deflection of the punch. At first, we're going to do a few in place so you can just kind of get a view of what it is that he's doing. And then I'm going to have him move around, because we don't want to stay in front of our opponent when they're attacking us. Okay? Just like you don't want to stand in the middle of the street when cars are zooming by on both sides of the street. You want to get to the sidewalk to safety. So I'm going to throw a 1-2, and he's just going to parry with his inside and his lead hand. Let's just stay right here. Alex, try to avoid turning your body to me when you parry this hand. Instead, just deflect. That's it. Feel like you're still kind of doing this. You're turning your chest to me, and what I want instead is this. That's it. Good. Let's get an angle here. Keep coming. Great. Now Alex is going to move around. Keep looking to get an angle on me. So just wanting him to look to get an angle, stay nice and calm. To get an angle on me as he's parrying and thinking about where he might set up a counter punch. That's it. He's moving away from the corner. Time. So he's taking into account where he is in the ring. I don't expect, if you're newer to this, I'm just kind of throwing that out there. He was turning toward the corner, and then he opted to pivot away from the corner so he isn't caught against the ropes. It's a little bit of ring generalship, ring awareness. We're not going to get real in depth with that. But overall, he was just deflecting those punches and looking to step to the left or right so that he could try to hit me at what we call an angle. Anything outside of this lane here would be considered an angle, more or less. So he's looking to do that. So take another round, another 2 to 3 minute round, to just move around and imagine that you are deflecting punches, getting a little deflection, and you're moving your feet, attempting to keep your balance. And down the line, we'll start adding some counter punching. Next, we're going to go ahead and pause the video, and next we'll work on parrying some uppercuts. All right, so next round, we are going to work on catching uppercuts. I want to be sure that I stress that this isn't the end-all and say-all when it comes to defense, blocking, and parrying punches. Our intent here is to lay the groundwork for some very fundamental techniques you can use to be sure that you aren't getting hit in exchanges. So just when you have your hands up, you can block from right where you are in your guard, in your stance. Down the line, we're looking at slipping punches, moving our head. You can use your elbows, etc. There's a number of ways that you can, a number of techniques you can use to evade punches. But let's move on to catching uppercuts. So we're in the pocket. I go to throw an uppercut at Coach Alex. Let's turn this way, Alex. And he's going to meet me other side. That's it. So he's just opening that hand the same way he would on a parry so that he can catch that punch before it connects to his chin or his nose. And we go up this way. Keep your legs ready and just try not to be so rigid. Elbows come in. So he's just turning. Time. What we don't want is for you to just be very stiff or very rigid in your guard way up here in this kind of peekaboo guard with your hands way up in a high guard, frozen and flat on your feet, unable to move or counter with something. So getting into the habit of turning. Take a 2 or 3 minute round to practice that. Pause the video and take 2 or 3 minutes to practice that, and then we'll meet back up to work on blocking hooks to the body. All right, as promised, this round we are going to work on blocking hooks to the body. We want to make sure that as you pull your guard in, so now initially we taught you, here's your kind of your default stance, right? That jab comes out, it's already establishing or measuring some distance from right out here. Now we're close enough to get hit with hooks to the body. We're close enough to be in an exchange. So we're going to pull that guard in, as Gerardo is going to show you in just a moment. So we'll pull those elbows in. They'll be nice and strong or packed densely into the rib cage. And he's going to shift his weight as I throw the punch toward his rib cage. Get a little shift of weight. We'll get from this angle here, and we'll go. Good. Try not to pull the elbow forward. That's it. As you see, he makes himself a tight little package. Good. Let's turn this way. A nice tight little package. He gets just a little crunch on each side so that down the line he can start countering punches. So if I wanted to come up top, he's doing a really good job of just keeping his arm in a nice shielded position there. One more time. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. And shifting his weight to set up the counter punch. So go ahead, you'll pause the video, and you'll take another round to work on that. And then we will go over a little wrap-up. All right, that's today's Box 1 class. Let's have you now skip over to the WODS section and pick one of those workouts to go through. We like to end our classes here, as you may know by now, with a little bit of calisthenics, a nice little workout to end things on a high note. Pick one of those workouts, usually about 10-ish minutes long, and you can call it a day. Let us know what questions you have, and we're always welcoming feedback to make sure that we're offering as much value as possible in our online courses.